For all your TCG needs, make sure to check out alphatradingcardgames.com. What's poppin', everybody? This is Rotom. Lost Origin is going to come out in 2 days. It's going to be a very, very hot set, collectability-wise. Second only to Evolving Skies in this era, and perhaps it's going to go neck and neck with it eventually. But we're here to talk about emerging decks in this video, as I usually do. These are just some of the emerging decks and strategies that you can try out involving Pokemon, mainly involving Pokemon from this new set, of course. I'm not going to cover anything. I'm not going to cover everything, and this is not going to be like the best decks by all means from the set. Some of them could end up being very strong or even the best, but it's just some emerging strategies, I guess, to think about. So the first deck you can try out, the easiest deck, I guess, to put together, and the only VMAX I think that has a little bit of potential when it comes to the VMAXs from this set, it might even be the only VMAX actually, is using Kyurem VMAX with Frostmoth. Typical strategy, you know, unlimited water energy acceleration from the hand thanks to Frostmoth, and this Kyurem is going to be a great partner. The difference between this guy and all the other water VMAXs and even Palkia VSTAR is that this guy has the ability to get one-hit knockouts on any Pokemon as long as you have enough water energies. It doesn't have a limitation like a lot of the newer cards these days have. It's just like the old Rayquaza cards where for as many energies as you got, you can do the damage. Unlimited ceiling, basically. So I think this is going to be a very good Pokemon if you want to get like easy one-hit KOs and not really deal and mess around with shit. You just get your Frostmoth out, get enough water energies, and then you can wreck people. So an easy tactic. Its stats are respectable for a VMAX, you know, 330 HP. You can't really ask for much more. Metal weakness, that can be a problem. Big retreat. But for the most part, it's a solid little card. Its ability can also be kind of handy if you build your deck around it, and it can also help you with a little bit of energy acceleration too. So it's semi-self-sufficient too, even if you don't have a Frostmoth all the time. Next up is a Porygon 2 Rotom V deck. These cards are also basically built to work together. Lost Zone tactic, kind of going to work on the style of Mad Party and Night March Turbo decks. You want to dump a lot of Pokemon tools in the Lost Zone, and Porygon 2 is going to do a lot of damage for just one energy. It is going to be a bit slower, I guess, than the Mad Party comparison because Porygon 2 is a stage 1. But the point of Rotom V is to help you out with that. It's going to give you some very solid draw power with this ability. It's basically the Zacian V ability. Just very, very good. Just draw 3. It's going to pass your turn, but very good during setup. And it's going to help you remove from play, basically, the tools from your discard pile, get them into the Lost Zone, and then it's going to fuel Porygon 2's attack. Simple deck, once again, if you want to know more about it. I mean, if you just check all of the item cards in the Lost Origin set, you'll know, okay, this is how you build this deck. Most of the item/trainer cards in Lost Origin just facilitate you getting cards in the Lost Zone. It's basically the engine, so build it yourself archetype in a way. Next up, another obvious combo when the set is telling you, hey, use these two cards together, is a Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR deck with the Gengar from this set. Pretty much, you just use the Gengar, dump the Gengar, revive it with its effect, put damage counters on your guys, and then it's going to trigger more damage for Tick and Curse of Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR. Times 50 is a strong multiplier. It just needs 2 colorless energies to work, so you can use DC and Expanded. You can use the Turbo DC -20. In Standard, you can use a bunch of other of the DC ripoffs. So you basically have a deck. Nothing much else to add. It has 270 HP. It's large. You can also combine it with Charon for healing. The Phantom Star ability is also pretty good. Discard your hand and draw 7. I mean, what more can you ask? Great package on a card. Build it yourself deck once again. I don't know if it's going to be as effective as it looks on paper because Darkrai V-Star was also a sort of a turbo deck working in a similar style, albeit with getting darkness energies into play, of course. But that didn't end up being so hot, the way I see it anyway. I think it should have been It should have been a lot more successful and should have seen more play in, I guess, top events like the World Championship. But it didn't happen. I guess people don't really favor that sort of strategy, or maybe it's not as effective as I think it is. So I don't know if Hisuian Zoroark is going to be as hot as I think it is. But I mean, it just seems like a great strategy on paper. Just simple to use, powerful. You don't even gotta get like the Gengar with rare candies and shit. You just gotta dump him and then revive him. That's it. So once again, strong deck, definitely an emergent strategy that's obvious and strong from this set. So keep it in mind. Next up is what I like to call an Arceus V-Star and his bitches sort of deck. And if you don't know what I mean by that, it's basically using Arceus V-Star to power up one of the new V-Stars from this set that's pretty powerful. You got Magnezone V-Star, you got Aerodactyl V-Star, Giratina V-Star, and even Hisuian Gudra V-Star. You can basically power up with Arceus, and then you got a deck. Now, many of these Pokemon don't necessarily need Arceus to power them up. Like Magnezone is a lightning Pokemon, you could perhaps use something like Fluffy to power it up, or just not use any energy acceleration at all. Just manually attach the lightning, attach the turbo DC, and then start grabbing cards with its attack, deal damage and grabbing cards, and then you got a sort of a toolbox deck. Maybe that's kind of going to work like the Togekiss VMAX deck and expanded, but not as fast. Giratina V-Star, of course, you can definitely pair up with Arceus, and I think people are just going to go in that direction and then use the Mirage Gate to give it more energy so that you can keep attacking. But basically, Giratina, it does 280. That's one hit KO on relevant meta Pokemon, including Arceus V-Star that I just mentioned. So you can go the, I guess, pure Giratina V-Star route, with all the Lost Zone trainer card engine. Get your cards, I guess, in the Lost Zone. This guy's attacking. Then you can use the Mirage Gate, keep putting energies on this guy, so that you always have enough energies to attack, even though he discards too. But you could definitely use Arceus too with him. I mean, it's not really complicated. The only one that probably definitely needs some support, and I don't think it's going to... I mean, it can work once again on its own, but it's not going to be easy. Aerodactyl, it's a fighting Pokemon. They don't have the easiest methods of energy acceleration usually. But it's also a really tough Pokemon. It's Ancient Star Attack that basically turns into an ability. It's going to shut down other abilities on Vs, so that's pretty broken. I mean, you got to admit that for as long as Aerodactyl is going to stick around. So I guess when you do knock it out, your opponent is free to use effects again, but I mean, it's really strong. It has a strong attack. I don't like its HP, especially because it has 2 retreat. So it's probably maybe one of the weaker candidates I guess you can use, but it is going to hit Arceus V-Star for weakness. It is going to do some stuff, so maybe it is going to be useful. And then the Hisuian Gudra V-Star, once again, you can combine this with Arceus, and then you have it ready. It's going to be a super tank Pokemon. No weakness either because it's a dragon. I mean, what more can you ask for? But Hisuian Gudra V-Star, that's a mouthful. It can also work on its own as a sort of a Heatran VMAX slash a Stonejourner VMAX deck. And if you don't know what I mean by that, it's basically the type of deck where you just have this guy on its own, and then you fill your deck with healing cards, tanking cards, and you got a deck basically. Now, Stonejourner sort of has that early attack to help it get going, and Heatran, it has other ways to accelerate energy. Gudra, I guess perhaps I'm missing something. Maybe you can use some different Pokemon to power him up. I mean, even Arceus, as I explained. But I do see it as a very powerful tank Pokemon. I do think it has a lot of potential. So that's all the big boys. Next up, I'm just going to focus on some regular-ass Pokemon strategies. Easy one to point out is something like Donphan from Vivid Voltage with this new Machamp here. Machamp is basically a stage 2 that once you're losing, you have 3 or less prizes. It gets 300 HP. So 300 HP Pokemon that's going to give out 1 prize is strong. I'm not going to lie. The problem is you gotta get yourself in that zone without just starting to get prizes on that time. So I think using a Pokemon like Donphan, which is just a stage 1, it just needs a fighting energy and then it can put a lot of pressure on your foe. Makes sense. I guess the self-damage is gonna fuck up my champ. So perhaps this is gonna be an expanded strategy where you use this with the Mr. Mime too, that's gonna block your self-damage. Or if you can figure out maybe using a different Pokemon, I guess it doesn't have to be Donphan. It could be one of those Hisuian Pokemon that have costless attacks that do damage, but just something to keep the pressure up as you slowly power up the Machamp. And, you know, you let your opponent get some KOs as he's progressing through their game state, and the Machamp can get the 300 HP. There's not really any easy way to activate this effect. I mean, you gotta be in the your opponent has to be in the 3 prize range or less for this effect to activate. Once it does, Machamp is strong, but like I said, you're gonna need a good partner for it. Maybe Donphan isn't exactly a good partner, but perhaps one of the Hisuian, like the Hisuian Quillfish evolution or something, that could be good. Okay, next up, Trevenant. Just using some sort of hit and switch strategy with Trevenant. Stage 1 Trevenant is not going to give any prizes if it dies through a V. So it's not going to be very viable for long when EX Pokemon are going to come out. But if you can use some sort of hit and switch Pokemon, I don't have any specific Pokemon in mind, but I'm sure there has to be a few with this dude. Maybe you got a deck. I mean, you can even just throw this in, I don't know, like expand it, Donphan decks and expand it, but you're just better off using the Clefairy Doll. So in standard, I guess you got to use somebody else. I mean, Crobat VMAX is around still, technically. So I guess this is going to be a good partner for it, now that we don't have the Clefairy Doll. So maybe that's going to be a thing once again. Who knows? Crobat VMAX with Trevenant. And then the last deck that I'm going to talk about that is once again a little bit vague, but it's something to think about, is using something like Luxray V from, I think, the previous set, Astro Radiance, with this new Barbaracle with Lost Block. It can be Luxray or some other hand discarding Pokemon that's solid, but you basically create a hand control type of deck with this guy because his ability is broken as all fuck. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this guy is going to see play in all sorts of control / troll decks, or just as a support Pokemon in any deck that wants to have a little bit of disruption. It doesn't have to be specifically a hand control deck, but for the purposes of this example, I'm talking about a hand control deck. But basically, Barbaracle, his ability, as long as this dude is out, when your opponent grabs a prize, it goes into the lost zone. They don't grab it. As I've mentioned before, it makes no difference whether it was going to go to the lost zone, whether it was going to go into the discard pile. It would still be extremely strong. Obviously, it's even stronger because it goes into the lost zone. But denying your opponent of prizes, you know, when they get a KO and they're owed a prize, basically, it's extremely strong. So you lose that card that they're going to get from their hand, and then if you're discarding cards from their hand through other means too, then maybe you're going to run them out of cards in hand. You're going to put them in a difficult position. Hand control, as I explained. So something to think about. Annoying ass strategy. I don't like combos like this, but I cannot deny it is something that you can experiment with. And basically, these are the emergent decks, or at least the decks that I think are worth a damn. There's a few other things, a few other regular Pokemon that maybe some people are going to tell me, why didn't you talk about the fucking, what's it called? Quaxar or whatever, or Kindra, whatever the fuck. I don't really believe in them that much, and maybe there's a few other cards that I'm missing, but I think these Pokemon have the most potential if they're going to do something, or maybe be strategies that you can experiment with, at least to some success. So these are the emerging decks for Lost Origin. It's going to be a hot-ass set. Pray for me that I get a few cards so I can show you guys some of these strategies, hopefully in action. And that's about it. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time. What